Hello everyone and welcome back. Let's continue our discussion on collections module Deque method. In the last lecture we saw how we can add elements at the right end of our Deque object by using the extend and append methods. In this lecture we'll start by looking at how we can add elements at the left end of our Deque object, and we'll use methods called extend left and append left. So as usual, we start by importing the collections module. Import collections, and let's create a Deque object. So collections.deque, and let's create an object containing the elements H, I, J, K, L, M, and N, and we'll save this in a variable called X. If we call X, we have a Deque object, and let's add the element G at the left end. So we can call the extend left method on our Deque object X and pass the element we want to add, let's say G. Now if we call our object X, we see that the element G is added at the left end. Similarly, we can add another element at the end, let's say F, using the extend left method. Now if we call X, we see that F is added at the left end. Similarly, we can add more than one element by using the extend left method, and then pass, let's say, the elements C, D, and E. Similar to the extend method, the extend left adds one element at a time at the left end. So it does iteration of each element one at a time. So if we run this and then call X, we see that the elements C, D, and E are added one at a time. Next, let's look at the append left method. So append left does the same thing as the extend left. That means it adds elements to the left end. But unlike the extend left method, if we have more than one element, it adds those elements as one. Okay, let's add one element, let's say B. Now if we call X, we see that B is added at the left end. Similarly, we can add more elements, let's say X.append left, let's say A. Now if we call X, we see that A is added at the left end. What if we pass more than one element at the left end? Let's say RST. So if we call X now, we see that RST will be added as one element. See, as one element at the left end. Unlike the extend left method. If it's extend left, it adds these elements one at a time. That's the difference between the append and extend left methods. There's also methods that we can use to remove elements from either end of our Deque object. It's called the pop method. This will remove the last element from the right end of our Deque object. And there is a pop left method that will remove the last element from the left end of our Deque object. Let's see an example. So let's call our Deque object X, we have that. If we want to remove the last element n, all we have to do is call the pop method on our object, on our Deque object x. So x.pop, run it. So you see it gives you the element that's removed. Now if you call x, we see that we don't have n anymore. Similarly, we can remove the last element m by calling the pop method again on our Deque object x. So we see that m is removed. If we call x, we no longer have m at the end. To remove elements from the left end, we use the pop left method. So let's call the pop left method on our Deque object x, and that will remove this element rst. X.pop left, rst is removed. If we call x, we no longer see rst. If you want to remove a, which is the last element at the left end, we can say x.pop left and run it. A is removed. So if we call our x object now, we no longer have a. And we have briefly seen the remove method. If we want to remove any specific element, we can just call the remove method on our Deque object and then pass the element we want to remove. Let's say I. Simply pass I. Now if we call x, we see that there is no longer I in our object. There is one more method I want to cover with Deque objects. It's called the rotate method. What this method does is that it takes elements from one end and then moves them to the other end. Okay, for this, let's create a Deque object and then save it in a variable called x. Let's see, collections.deque, and let's create a Deque object containing the elements a, b, c, d, e, f, g, and h. Okay, if we call x, we have those elements a through h. Now let's call the rotate method. You can say x.rotate and let's pass 3. So the rotate method can accept positive and negative values. So in this case, we used positive 3. So what this means is it will take these 3 elements a, b, c, and they move them to the other end of our Deque object. Okay, x.rotate positive 3. So now if we run it and then call our Deque object x, we see that. So we can call the rotate method on our Deque object x, x.rotate, and then pass, let's say, 3. So what this will do is that it will take these 3 elements f, g, and h, and then move them to the beginning of the Deque object. Let me run it and show you. So call x. Okay, now we see that the last 3 elements f, g, and h are moved to the beginning of our Deque object, and we have a, b, c, d, e following those elements. Okay, similarly we can rotate, let's say, x.rotate and then pass 2, for instance. In this case, it will take the last 2 elements d and e and then move them to the beginning of our Deque object. Let's call x. Now we have d, e, f, g, h, and then a, b, c. Similarly, if we pass 3 to our rotate function now, we'll get our original object x. So that's the rotate taking positive numbers. Now let's look at the rotate method and this time, let's pass a negative number. So let's say x.rotate, and let's pass -3. So in this case, it will take elements from the left end, so D, E, and F, and then move them to the end of our Deque objects. So if we call X again, now we see that D, E, and F are moved to the end. Similarly, we can call the rotate method again, and then pass, let's say, -2, and this will take our elements G and H and move them to the end of our Deque object. Let's call X again. Now we have A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and H. Okay, let's look at one more example of rotation method. Let's create a Deque object using the range function. Let's say range, let's say up to 12, and then save this in a variable called number. So if we call our number object, we have a Deque object from 0 to 11. Now let's call the rotate method on our num object, num.rotate, so we can pass, let's say 4. That will take this last 4 elements, 8, 9, 10, and 11, and move them to the beginning of our object, Deque object. So if we call num again, we get 8, 9, 10, 11 at the beginning. And if we call the rotate method on our Deque object and then pass a negative number, let's say -6, it will take the first 6 elements, 8, 9, 10, 11, 0, 1, and then move them to the right end of our Deque object. So let's run this. Now if we call our num object, we see that 8, 9, 10, 11, and 0, 1 are moved to the right end. Great. This is what I have for the Deque object methods, and in the next lecture we'll continue with more methods in the collections module. Thank you everyone.